Rent-a-Girlfriend is a good show. That is not a sentence I thought I'd be saying this anime season. Well, I guess we're in the next one now. Let alone making my first ever video essay on it, but here we are. So, there are a lot of rom-com harem shows out there these days, but I haven't found many that evoke this much emotion from me despite being, well, so goddamn freaking crazy. Now, I could just be going through a phase, but considering I read the manga twice now, I think it's safe to say it's not a fluke. That's 158 chapters and counting. We're talking full-on Shonen Jump manga over here. But what makes this series so special? Well, it's a bit of a complicated answer, so bear with me. It wouldn't be a rom-com harem if it wasn't a long answer. So, if you haven't guessed yet, this anime follows some common tropes found in many traditional rom-coms. An indecisive main character who kinda has nothing going for him somehow ends up with a girl that's way, and I mean way, out of his league. She wears Crocs, by the way, and I freaking love it. Story reasons make it so they have to lie about their relationship, and convenient elements allow for plot progression, etc, etc. It's an anime that can feel pretty straightforward at times, but you can't help but notice that there's something else, an unspoken feeling you can't quite put into words, and that's because these tropes are all a bait, a clever ruse designed to lure you into a false sense of security, making you think you understand the true nature of the story, and to a degree you do, because if you've seen any rom-com, you've seen them all, am I right? I'll just go back to my corner now. It brings you in, introduces you to the main girls of the series, gets you all caught up in its crazy horny-ass plot, making you think it's just another one of your everyday harems, but slowly, it begins to dig its claws into you and show you its true colors. In reality, Rent-a-Girlfriend is a coming-of-age rom-com story focused on the complex existence of relationships and the nature of living in modern society. Discussing ideas such as what it feels like to lose your first romantic relationship, how it can impact you and the people around you, what it's like to be the only child of a proud, not rich household that puts many expectations on you, and how that can shape you as a person, and even the brutal loneliness that comes from just trying to live your life. Did I happen to mention that this wasn't a romance comedy? Yeah, you wouldn't get that impression when I put it like that, huh? That's what I mean when I say it's all a bait. The comedy aspect is a way to relax you and to keep the show entertaining while the story tackles some very hard-hitting topics. The sheer nature of the show can initially turn off some of its viewers, but if you stick with it, you might experience something far beyond what you could have expected. A theme that, interestingly enough, mirrors our main character Kazuya. But before I jump into that, I do want to talk about how the show sets up for its narrative. To start off, the setting is different from usual romance stories, taking place with an older cast already in college, a thirsty-ass college student for a lead who actually has a girlfriend. Had a girlfriend. And now has a girlfriend. And now you know the gist of the story. And many of the story-relevant events actually taking place outside of the campus grounds. We literally have a beach arc as early as episode 3. The relationship that Kazuya, the main character, has with his family and friends feels so natural and common. Him and his bros joke about stupid crap like sex, go out to drink, do karaoke, and even go to the arcades together. You get to see the story from the perspective of someone living an ordinary college life. I say ordinary, but you have your boy over here going through straight depression. The narrative is also refreshingly self-aware and doesn't mind making fun of how stupid and crazy it gets sometimes. I mean, for crying out loud, the ending is literally just about how much Kazuya faps and the lead girl's cheering him on. Which, if you think about it, is an interesting nod to his dreamer-like persona. And a statement that we've reached peak horny on main. The opening and contrast focuses on the story, with the lyrics mirroring the events on screen to form its own narrative, which I actually think is a particularly creative use of imagery. All of this sets up for the world building, making it feel like it could actually very well happen in real life, something I think the author Ryuji Miyajime-sensei really wanted to capture. It's a deep and relatable story that can really catch you off guard if you just think it's another trashy harem, dragging you in and getting you addicted to its characters and themes. And I think that's what makes this series so surprisingly good, is specifically those characters, because they, unlike many animes, are very flawed individuals, with their flaws being put front and center. So there will be anime spoiler stuff ahead. If you have not watched the anime yet, I recommend you go do that before you see this part. If you don't care, do it at your own risk. And now, on with the show. Mommy, yeah, we're starting with her. Despite being cruel and manipulative, forces Kazuya to confront his feelings about her and admit to himself how much of an impact she has on him. She's intelligent and rather cunning, calling Kazuya's lies from a mile away and getting into people's heads, making them uncomfortable in a way that's hard to respond to. She's like a hunter slowly cornering its prey. Her initial character is rather egotistical and seems to just do what she does for the sake of having fun, breaking up with Kazuya because she assumably got bored, and causing trouble in his love life out of some insecurity towards him or Shizuru. She's one of those characters that you just instinctively don't like, but has has this presence about them that controls the room and is hard to pin down, even giving me chills in the later episodes. I started with her because, well, first girlfriend, and also because I find her character strange. On one hand, she's a pretty straightforward, manipulative, bad character that's just here to ruin your day, but on another, she makes similar mistakes to Kazuya, acting on preconceived notions, getting all up in his business, and even showing that she might have feelings for him as more of her is revealed to us, giving me this sense of immaturity and pride bordering on hubris. It's this crazy back and forth with her character where she jumps from being the antagonist to having some level of sincerity and genuine emotions that makes her so perplexing to me as a character. Because while I could just easily hate her for being the antagonist, instead I find myself curious about her past and what's the deal with her, especially with all this setup behind her that's yet to be explored. Not to say I'm exactly down for her rotten mango attitude towards Shizuru and Kazuya though. You mess with them and you're gonna get an ass kicking from a certain gacha wielding grandma. Kibou, Kazuya's bolding best friend, who also happens to be close to his grandma, is that top-tier wingman always looking out for his homie, calling him out when he's being a moron and even going out of his way to try and fix his relationship with Shizuru. And his advice to Kazuya to stop letting his dick dictate his love life really strikes a chord with their main character and impacts many of his actions in future arcs. I also find it interesting how the story about baby Kazuya that he tells Shizuru mirrors the main plot, and how despite the plant falling apart before it even grew, the relationship with mommy, with enough care and growth, something even better came along. Shizuru and Kazuya's inevitable character development. Ruka, which I might add is as subtle as a fucking demolition crew, attempting to force a romantic relationship with Kazuya only makes him realize that it's not all about love and sometimes friends come first. Her confrontational nature creates a lively dynamic with her fellow leads, making them confront the reality of their situation. And oddly enough, the relationship she has with Kazuya doesn't feel romantic in nature, as she clearly only does it because he makes her heart race, which is actually kind of romantic. Okay, we're not gonna think about that. No, back to the point. And Kazuya doesn't view her with romantic interest, restraining himself in an attempt to not lead her on. In a way, his relationship with Ruka teaches him how to operate in a romantic relationship and what it might feel like to actually have one. That and self-control, cause damn, that girl's a fucking hunter. She feels like a simpler character than Mommy, but serves a similar purpose in forcing new topics and plot progression, as seen in episode 9, even bordering as an antagonist of sorts with how over-aggressive she can be. Sumi only got one episode, which despite making me weep harder than a soap opera, ironically fits her character considering she says a total of 10 words every time she's on screen. And yet, she still manages to cure my aching heart. Her dynamic with Kazuya is really interesting because they essentially just bounce off each other, giving strength with each rally. They literally function as a character progression engine for one another, which is really cool. It's super cute and a joy to watch as it feels more akin to a normal relationship date-like scenario than most other interactions in the series. Your boy even hates that he loots her, which naturally should be reinforced on a universal level. If you loot Sumi, you get a one-way terror ride to ReZero. And of course, I can't forget my favorite grandmas, Negumi and Sayuri. These two are not only the funniest characters, but the most wholesome. God, I love that Negumi makes gotcha jokes. Being of an older generation, the pair give guidance and wisdom to our leads, discussing their hopes for them and making them understand that no matter how flawed you are, it doesn't change that you're human. Unlike characters like Ruka or Mami, they don't force them to confront the realities of the world, but rather show them what they obviously don't see. Whether it's that they need to have sex and get married, or that life is more bearable when you have someone you love at your side. A theme Reiji-sensei took to heart when writing the cast. No one in this series is a perfect character. Everyone is immature in a very realistic sense. Their flaws and immaturity dictate their actions, making you think it's bad writing, when in reality, it's just mirroring everyday interactions. That's why the grandma pair are so interesting. They're like a beacon of light in the void of social norms, parting the rain clouds and showing us the sunshine that we desperately need. They remind our leads that everyone is messed up at one point or another. What matters is what you do with your failure and how you can learn from it. Everyone has an influence on the leads, teaching them a lesson on growing up and emotional maturity, slowly guiding them on their journey indirectly or otherwise. So, remember that part earlier in the video where I said, the show could turn you off initially, but if you stick with it, you might find something far more amazing than you could have expected. Or something like that. Well, that theme is exactly the idea behind Kazuya's character. Arguably, the single reason that turns people off from this series, Kazuya is kind of a weird case for a main character. Unlike many protagonists out there, Kazuya is the literal manifestation of immaturity. He is flawed to a fault and makes decisions that will piss off many people. He borders on a loose cannon, letting his emotions run wild and dictating a lot of his actions based on how horny or insecure he feels. His mind is like a walking Rule 34, looting everything within a 50-mile radius, and the show takes every liberty it can to put that front and center. Editor's note, there's nothing wrong with being horny. In fact, it's perfectly natural to be attracted to someone if you manage it in a healthy way. Kazuya just happens to be an idiot with no self-control in the middle of a romance setting that has girls who practically break the moe meter. Also, the way he finds out he loves Shizuru is fucking hilarious. His dick literally slapped him with the facts mid-session. Anyways, back to the show. Clearly dealing with severe anxiety and low self-esteem, Kazuya can really turn off the viewers, but I think that's what makes him so interesting. Unlike many common normal protags, he isn't a genius who deals with things in a calculated manner. He doesn't have the guts to make super hard decisions, and above all, he's desperate. Desperate for a real emotional connection. Desperate because he's surrounded by beautiful girls who he thinks are way out of his league. Something very common for guys around his age and made worse by his low self-esteem. I dare you to tell me you've never acted stupid in front of someone you liked or found really attractive because you didn't know how to approach, saying stupid shit that when you look back at just makes you cringe and want to flush your head down a toilet. And finally, he's desperate because when he messed up his relationship with Mommy, it reinforced every single negative thing he said about himself. You can see these thoughts in his mind constantly with the many interactions in the series. He's a flawed person, but that doesn't make him a bad one. He tries his best to take responsibility for his actions, just trying to deal with Ruka or protecting Shizuru's secret even at the cost of himself, showing that he can be selfless. And many of his actions early on, while a bit scummy, occur because he's still very immature, and he knows this. All these relationships and connections that Kazuya makes are slowly guiding him to the prime of his character, and this setup is there from the very beginning of the series. From the first time he met Shizuru, he already started heading down the right direction. Albeit slowly, but it's progress all the same. His family and friends see this. That's why Grandma Negumi and Kibou push him so hard. They know he has a lot of heart and is a really good person deep down, but he holds himself back. And it's also the reason Shizuru chose to help him in the first place, because she is just the kindness he needed to get through some of his struggles. It's honestly crazy good setup for his inevitable growth, but also showing that bad habits don't go away overnight. That's why I think if you relate to him, I can kinda understand. As someone who royally fucked up my first relationship, Kazuya is relatable to me because he reminds me of the emotional turmoil that I went through, the crazy whiplash of losing a relationship too quickly, and even the self-deprecation. All the ways he acts around Mommy, to a degree, make sense to me. Some scenes still drove me nuts, don't get me wrong, but when he tries to find a way to make up for it every chance he gets, even going as far as trying to end his relationship with Shizuru at times in an attempt to remedy his past actions, I can't help but want him to get it right. His emotional and mental immaturity is probably the biggest turnoff for some viewers, but that's exactly the reason why I find him so fascinating as a character. He doesn't make constant progress, and he fumbles the play a lot, but when he steps up, holy shit, he goes from step -3000 all the way to step 100 just like that. Like when he literally almost drowned to save Shizuru even though he viewed his relationship with her as fake. Or when he asked Shizuru to go on a date with Kuri in order to help his friend get over his problems, even though it might come back to bite him in the process. And of course, when he stepped up to save Sumi from the literal spawns of Satan, all while getting badmouthed and taunted. Even in the controversial episode 8 where he literally stalks Shizuru. The fear he feels, the looming thoughts that he might not be as close with her as he wants to be. And even the disgust in his actions is understandable. The lesson is, don't stalk people because you're insecure, by the way. And despite all that, the ending is handled in a mature way. Shizuru called him out on his shit, but they were still able to clear up the misunderstanding and talk it out. His seemingly constant downward spiral always has a payoff and helps him deal with harder story beats as the story progresses. He's constantly evolving, but in subtle ways hidden behind the curtain. And to boot, it's not exactly easy having to confront some of his inner demons on a constant basis. That's why he agonizes over every action he takes and why he's so self-conscious all the time. He just wants to stop the lies and build healthy bridges, but ends up causing chaos due to his inexperience and confidence issues. This is especially notable through Ruka. She, like Kazuya, wants a normal relationship, but he, sincerely liking Shizuru, being stuck in a web of lies and attempting to protect his grandma, someone he really looks up to, doesn't want that, thus triggering her over-aggressive nature, leading her to take drastic measures that only lead to a bigger mess than before. And while it's funny, and sometimes even spicy to watch how far she'll go, Kazuya still notices how much this is hurting her, and attempts to take responsibility for his actions, because at the end of the day, Ruka is just a high school kid who doesn't know any better, not realizing that by practically blackmailing someone into a relationship and trying to strong-arm them, you won't get anywhere. And this situation is made even sadder considering Ruka's backstory and how for the longest time she couldn't feel anything. It's such an ironic situation that is the complete opposite of Shizuru's in every sense of the word. She wants to actually be his girlfriend but won't ever really get past the trial phase, while Kazuya's rental relationship, one that's not even supposed to be a thing, slowly drifts in that direction. Ruka's actions seem selfish, but just like Kazuya, she's desperate because she thinks he's the one. If you're thinking it's the same as Kazuya with Mommy, it's because it is. Minus of course the whole Mommy being evil part, and their roles are swapped. You can understand and empathize with her struggles, and I think that's why so many people like her. We're not all Sims for cute anime girls. Or are we? Yes! And this naturally comes back to Shizuru and her relationship with Kazuya. Major spoilers ahead for the manga. If you want to leave, now's the time to leave. I'm gonna really delve into the story here, so if you don't want to hear, I recommend you skip to the timestamp. When you first meet Shizuru, she seems like this really cool person who has it all together, lighting up the day and bringing the feeling of joy to every scene she's in. She's kind, caring, and very fun to be around. But while she comes off as this mature and confident girl who can do anything, a very stark contrast to Kazuya, the more the story continues, the more you learn about her past, how alone and cornered she feels, how she tragically lost almost all of her relatives, and her last anchor, Grandma Sayuri, is hospitalized, how hard she's worked to make her dream come true, and constantly being told no at every turn, losing more and more of herself until she has nothing but her goals to keep her going, hiding herself behind the mask of the perfect girlfriend so that she doesn't show how sad and hurt she actually is. You can't help but want to scream at Kazuya to just give her a damn hug already. You start wanting her relationship with Kazuya to blossom because it becomes increasingly clear that, just like he needed her, she needs him. Not just as a romantic love interest, but just as someone she can talk to, share her feelings with, and help her through the maze she's built around herself. Because while Kazuya feels lonely, Shizuru really is alone. She clings to the fake relationship narrative she has with Kazuya so that she doesn't risk losing one of her only real bonds. And her tsundere-like coldness is just as much a mask as her girlfriend mode is, hiding real moments of affection and lying to herself by saying that's what's expected or she's his girlfriend, so it's her job. Grandma Sayuri highlights this perfectly in chapter 58 when she asks Kazuya to be there for Shizuru in her time of need. As Shizuru's last living relative, this kind of final request to Kazuya motivated him to keep supporting her and get closer to her. But because he gradually becomes closer to Shizuru and is also afraid to lose the relationship just like she is, he takes a similar path of inner deception, perpetuating the cycle. They are looped in what I can only describe as the Chinese finger trap of relationships, stuck in the lies of their own flaws, not admitting that the fake relationship isn't so fake anymore.
Data, what are you doing?
Apologies, Captain. I seem to have reached an odd functional impasse.
And in an attempt to continue their 5-dimensional infinite Tsukuyomi lie, they get closer and closer to one another, forming a real bond under the guise of a fake relationship. Shizuru's struggles, although clearly much worse than Kazuya's, creates an interesting parallel to the beginning of the series and how she was there for him at his worst, passing the baton on to him to step up and be there for her now, even mirroring the influence of the grandmas on the two. The current arc really took the story to a new level, creating an overarching goal for the gang to work towards making Kazuya go through extreme character development, giving him a support system through Sumi and Yamori. And can we just take a minute here and just appreciate how amazing these two are? Kazuya's relationship with Sumi is so beautiful and my favorite thing to see. They have similar struggles, communicate so naturally, and even enjoy each other's company. Sumi's like the embodiment of heaven's grace, unlootable and practically breaks the moe meter with a goddamn notepad. Her sheer presence cleanses your soul of all of its sins. You can be mid-cardiac arrest and the shock from her being in the room alone will put your heart rhythm back to normal. Yamori, on the other hand, is like the ultimate, yo, it's time for you two to get down and dirty. She's a wing woman and a weeb. A wing weeb, if you will. Truly, the essence of what it means to be in the I have a waifu culture. She ships these two harder than the whole fandom and both grandmas combined. And her gotcha jokes are even more meta than Negumi's. If she was real, I'd want her autograph. This girl gets shit done and still has time to waste money on her favorite SSR. Hell, she is an SSR. These two allow Kazuya an avenue to talk to about his problems and slowly build on his good qualities so he can properly build on his relationship with Shizuru. And it's done in such a low-key way. You see him slowly learning to control his emotions, manage his train of thought, commit to some really hard decisions he couldn't do before, and even voice his opinions to Shizuru despite his low self-esteem. It's actually a fantastic move by the author as it brings everything together to create a more cohesive narrative, all while slowly highlighting Kazuya's good qualities. Your boy is literally bordering on a Chad right now. Honestly, at this point, all he's missing is a comically large sword as decreed by the shonen gods. The characters in this series are a well-written and complex cast that mirror many everyday young adults going through modern-day life struggles, all seamlessly interwoven into a narrative that doesn't mind getting a little over the top with its situations. And Kazuya, being the bitter pill to swallow, is what makes him so interesting in my eyes. He's a messed up individual, and while you could easily give up on him, if you give him enough time and support, he can really show you his best qualities. It's not a god-tier level story, but it is a well-thought-out one. You can tell Miyajime-san gave it his all to bring these characters to life, something I really appreciated when reading the manga. The work this man puts into making the manga is nuts, and honestly, you'd be doing yourself a disservice not reading it. The story is handled with a lot of care, and the art is drop-dead gorgeous. Miyajime-san even researches fashion in order to give characters a unique and ever-expanding wardrobe that fits their style. There's a reason Shizuru looks so damn good all the time. Even making some scenes hit a whole kinda different than the anime. Also, speaking of the anime, as to be expected, some stuff has been altered or cut out in order to keep up with the 12-episode runtime. Quick note here, I actually think some of these decisions are really smart, especially in earlier episodes episodes where they combine multiple chapters in order to have better progression and pacing. If I had to describe it, I'd say the anime is like a speedrun of the series. You get most of the story, but you miss out on some fun chapters and panels, small changes that alter the atmosphere of certain story moments, and even a deeper look into characters. So simply speaking, the manga for Rent-a-Girlfriend, or otherwise known as Kanojo Okrashimasu, well, that's just what the series is called, has a lot more subtleties and nuances to it in my eyes. I think the animation team handled a lot very well. I mean, for crying out loud, the soundtrack sounds like retro video game battle music. And the tracks like Ruka's theme straight up want me to dance my ass off. It's so unorthodox and not something you'd expect in an anime like this, yet it works. I feel some tracks have strange placement and the series needs some more somber tunes, but the ones they currently utilize still hit like a... However, some parts of the anime feel a little rushed or handled in a really strange way, like the ending song for Ruka's backstory. Even though it slapped my ass cheeks like they're bongo drums and really made me like her character, I still felt like more needed to be shown. And when I read it in the manga, I had a much easier time empathizing with her character because I got a clear picture of the situation and how much it impacted her. Coming back to my earlier analogy of a speedrun. Point is, the anime is a very good adaptation that has some really good pop-off moments, but I feel the manga has a better story structure overall. If the animation team can maybe improve their pacing in some episodes a bit and capture aspects of the narrative in future seasons, then I think we'll have struck gold. I mean, personally speaking, I feel like if you like the series, then you should just do both. At the time of this recording, the manga is still ongoing. Season 1 of the series ended at chapter 50, so if you want to start, that's where you could start. Although I recommend you start from the beginning, since again, there's a lot more foreshadowing and build-up in the manga. You can buy up to volume 2 on Amazon, which ends at chapter 14. Sadly, most chapters are fan-translated, so online is your best bet. However, it's still a very good translation, so I still recommend giving it a go. Rent-a-Girlfriend is like a roller coaster, building up excitement with its scenarios, taking you on a wild ride that both makes you laugh and cry, yet coming back to the core themes of relationships and emotions. The story knows it's a comedy, but never forgets to remind you of the reality of the situations it's presenting. It slowly gets you addicted, and you can't help but want to come back for more just to know what happens next. The harem plot, despite being rather silly, is surprisingly self-aware and charming. Every new arc has a spicy new twist while also exploring a new facet of relationships, where they can go and how they can form. The show's lead, Kazuya, despite being depressed and a little too attached to his lower half, brings a refreshingly human take to protagonists, creating an entertaining yet bittersweet experience for viewers. His struggles, although a bit romanticized, showcase his potential as a character and pushes you to see how far he can go on his journey of self-discovery. He's a reminder that despite all our flaws, you're still human and worthy of love. So persevere, get past your fears, face your inner demons, because relationships can blossom anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. As someone with confidence issues, this series and its characters really struck a chord with me. I can wholeheartedly say no other rom-com, harem, drama, or whatever hit me nearly as hard as Rent-a-Girlfriend. Well, at least for this last anime season. I'm really glad the anime got to shine as much as it did, especially in these dark times where 2020 feels like having its own roller coaster of surprise, motherfucker! And many don't have much human interaction. So I hope I was able to give you a glimpse of the magic of Rent-a-Girlfriend, and maybe, just maybe, get you to fall in love with it, like I did. Also, please read the manga. Well, thanks for sticking this long. I've been in recording hell for like the past 2 weeks, so I've had to do a lot of readjusting to the script. This was, again, my first script, and I really wanted to express how much this series means to me. It really kind of reminded me of the importance of self-love and just kind of made me enjoy anime again. Especially since it borders on this nice medium of reality and the romanticized nature of anime. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot the age-old question. Who's best girl? Well, it's my Crocs-wearing queen, Shizuru. There's no topping her. She's in goddess tier. I'm sorry, that's just how it's gonna go here. However, if Shizuru wasn't a thing, and many of you fellow believers agree with me here, Sumi would be best girl, cause damn, this girl's a goddamn angel. As you could tell, I am extremely biased towards Sumi. Probably my favorite character if it wasn't for Shizuru and Kazuya, I'm just saying. My honorable mentions are Yamori, Grandma Negami, and Grandma Sayuri, because they all make me laugh, they all talk real shit to me. One has a fang and is a weeb, and the other two are old, so it kinda all evens out, if you know what I mean. I also want to say thank you to the subreddit community. I really enjoy talking to you guys, and you really helped me iron out my script, indirectly or otherwise. I did get to talk to some of you and had some really fun discussions about the plot, so thanks again for making it so fun. I'll link the subreddit down below, so go ahead and check it out. It's a really fun community, and you won't regret it. And lastly, before I go, I found a cool video by Piolo from Tokyo that actually showcases Reiji Miyajime Sensei's daily routine. It's a good way to know about the daily life of a mangaka and appreciate how much work he puts into making the series as good as it it is. So give it a watch if you want some of that behind the scenes manga action. I really wanted to talk about the anime, but I also wanted to talk about the manga, so I made this like a semi-spoiler video. I hope you enjoyed the format. You'll have to let me know in the comments if it was good or if I spoiled a little too much, but we'll see where it goes from there. So for now, I've been Fate, and I guess I'll see you next time I decide to write a 4 to 6 page essay on why I'm too goddamn emotionally invested in a rom-com. Damn it, it's a really good rom-com.